Your Dynasty football trade deadline could be approaching, if you have a trade deadline, of course. So I figured, why not give an updated tier ranking for Dynasty running backs? Comment down below. Let me know if I should do this for wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends as well, because I could consider doing that. Do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe. Okay, starting with the S tier. This has been really tough this year to really define a true RB1 in Dynasty football. To start the year, it was Jonathan Taylor. Then it kind of transitioned to maybe being Breece Hall. Then Breece Hall went down. Some people said Saquon Barkley. Then there's times where Ken Walker has been people's RB1. It's been really hard to define a true S tier, someone who stands on their own. But I have 4 running backs that I believe should be in consideration for being the Dynasty RB1 right now. Those 4 running backs consist of Jonathan Taylor. Look, I know it's not been the best year for Jonathan Taylor, but you have to keep in mind, he has missed, 3 games? The offense was in absolute shambles. They fired their head coach. Sam Ehlinger was their starting quarterback, which no one thought he should be. But Jonathan Taylor, no significant injuries, 23 years old, still one of the most elite talents at the running back position in the league. I don't think we should be discounting him as the RB1. The next person that I have in consideration for being the RB1 would be my guy, my breakout of the year at the Dynasty position. I'm so excited that I stuck with my guns and he's finally becoming the player that we thought he could be. All right, I struggled to find him there for a second. That is Travis Etienne. I also think he could be in consideration in this S tier. Now, would you take Etienne over Jonathan Taylor right now? Probably not. Same age. Jonathan Taylor has the build, if you will, to kind of last a little bit longer in the NFL. But Travis Etienne, a true do-it-all running back, 0 to 100 real quick, maybe the fastest in the NFL with his burst. I'll definitely put him in that category. All right, and the third player that I think should be in this conversation is Ken Walker, running back out of Seattle. He's had a great second half of the year. All it took was a Rashad Penny injury, and he's absolutely dominated. Snap percentages have gone up from 58 to 69 to 70 to most recently versus Tampa Bay, 87% of the snaps. He's been an absolute dominant force on this offense. Multiple games over 25 fantasy points already, multiple games over 25 total touches, only 22 years old. He has more than proven to be an elite running back in the NFL. So I'm going to put him in this category as well. And the fourth player that I think should be in this category is Breece Hall. Now, look, if Breece Hall didn't suffer the ACL injury, then he would easily be right here. And I think we might actually leave him there by himself. If Breece Hall wasn't injured at all, if he was still completely healthy, only 21 years old, was showing absolute dominant performances, you could make a case for putting him up there by himself. But unfortunately, that's not the reality that we live in right now. We don't know exactly how he's going to recover from the injury. The good thing is he's a young running back, only 21 years old. We'll have plenty of time to recover, and we have seen the dominant performances from him already this early in his career. Let me say though, with the 23 class could completely change everything. I think we'll have multiple players who end up at top 12 right as soon as they get drafted as far as running backs go, multiple top 15 and 20 running backs. Honestly, with the 2023 class, you can move all these guys down and have Bijan on his own, because that's how it should be. We should have Bijan as the clear Dynasty running back 1 as soon as he gets drafted. All right, going on to the A tier. And look, I know there's a lot of people who will be frustrated that I don't have 2 players in particular in this S tier. The thing is, running backs do have a timeline in the NFL. And I understand, how long is your timeline? How long are you planning on competing? And I understand some people could make a case for Saquon Barkley in the S tier, but he's going to be at the beginning of my A tier. We've already seen a serious knee injury and other injuries that have held him out for a ton of games. He's 25 years old, likely to get a long-term contract, but hard to see him getting 2 long-term contracts. And then it's pretty much the same case with Christian McCaffrey. Again, another running back who's a little bit older. He's 26 years old. Does that mean I don't value him right now in Dynasty? Of course not. It just means I don't prefer him over the other younger elite talents in the NFL. I still think he'll be drafted in redraft leagues as one of the top running backs, but that doesn't mean I prefer him over some of these young budding talents in Dynasty football. You can feel free to disagree with me. I completely understand where you're coming from, but I'm not so convinced that he doesn't sustain an injury in the San Francisco offense anyway. So someone who has a vast history of injuries, I'm going to put him right here behind Saquon in the A tier. And the next player on this list for me is probably the most talked about running back in Dynasty football right now. I can't give up on him. I also can't explain at all why he's being utilized the way he is. I think you know exactly who I'm talking about. That player is DeAndre Swift. If DeAndre Swift could stay healthy and could get 20 touches a game, he could probably finish as the RB1. He's shown that talent-wise. The issue is, I don't think anyone could really explain to you his usage. And he's going to be in his 4th year of his contract here soon. Do we ever reach the point where DeAndre Swift is going to be a workhorse running back in the NFL consistently? I don't know the answer to that question. Extremely efficient, clearly the best player on their team, but they choose to use him in some really strange ways. But as we say in Dynasty, bet on talent long term, and that's what I'm going to do here with DeAndre Swift. And then to end my A tier, I have one more player, and that is Austin Eckler. Now, Eckler is the oldest player so far to go to be ranked. He's 27 years old, but I believe his play style and the way that he's utilized in fantasy football, the longevity is there for me a little bit more in the way that he's utilized in the air. All right, going on to the B tier. And some people might argue he should be in the A tier with all these other guys, but that is Nick Chubb for me. 26 years old, absolutely in the prime of his career, is about to get Deshaun Watson. And if you're in a win now window that's like 1 to 2 years, then Nick Chubb is the ideal running back for you to have. Now, in 2 years when he's 28 or 29, will he have the same usage? Will they draft someone? I think that's possible, but right now, clearly in the conversation for being one of the top running back talents in the NFL. I'll put him here, currently RB5 on the year. All right, the next player, look, this is going to be controversial. This was supposed to be a big breakout player this year, but had a unfortunate injury. That is Javonte Williams. I'm going to put Javonte Williams in this B tier as well. The talent is never the question. There won't be any Melvin Gordon next year, and there won't be any other running back to really compete with him unless they draft a running back, which could definitely happen. So after the draft, we could completely change our rankings if they go out and draft a Zach Evans, if they go out and draft a Sean Tucker or a Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. That could definitely change Javonte's rankings. But right now, the talent isn't the question. We have to see if he can recover from his injury. But I love Javonte Williams. I'm going to put him here in this B tier. And then another running back that was massively disrespected this offseason. I was a big fan of his. I was a buy of his all offseason. And that is Josh Jacobs Jingleheimer Schmidt, who is 24 years old, still a relatively young running back, has been in the league for a little while, but a young running back, has absolutely broken out this year with the Raiders under Josh McDaniels, who it doesn't look like they can let go of anyway. He's playing at an elite level, 4th overall in PPR formats right now. Didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so it feels like he's bound to get a long-term deal somewhere. I don't care where he goes. I think he stays in Las Vegas, but I think he's going to continue to be a workhorse running back in the NFL, and that is kind of hard to find nowadays. All right, I have one more player in this tier, and that is Joe Mixon. Mixon's interesting because I think in a year or two, I think his value could really decrease when it comes to Dynasty football. But right now, it's hard to find these kind of running backs who, when healthy, are given 20 touches a game. And that's what you're getting right now with Joe Mixon. And to open the C tier, I'm going to put a player that I think has also been relatively disrespected in the Dynasty community. I understand why people don't want him in redraft right now, but the kind of trades I've seen in our Discord where people are sending this player away for basically nothing is crazy to me. And that is Najee Harris. I'll put him at the beginning of this C tier, 24 years old, same as Josh Jacobs, but the difference being he's only on his second year of his 5-year contract. Remember, he's a rookie who was drafted in the first round as a rookie, so he has that 5-year deal with Pittsburgh. I think this offense is going to continue to improve. They're going to continue to build the offensive line. Kenny Pickett looks decent. Good wide receivers around him as well. I think Najee's going to continue to be a workhorse running back. I'll still take a first-round running back who has proven fantasy success over the next guy in Ramondre Stevenson, who, yes, is having an absolute breakout year and you prefer him in redraft, but what's the draft capital? Show me how many running backs with Ramondre Stevenson's draft capital that have been given long-term deals. And what's the system he's in? How many running backs can you name in New England that have been given big money deals? And how many running backs in New England have been the workhorse guy? It would not surprise me at all, no matter how well Ramondre does this year, if they go out and draft 2 running backs, if they sign a couple in free agency, if they bring back Damien Harris. So I like Ramondre Stevenson. I just don't value him over some of these other guys who have higher draft capital. The next player, and I know there's going to be someone in the comments below who's telling me I'm disrespecting him. Look, the cliff has to come at some time. Derrick Henry, right now, the RB2 in fantasy football, 28 years old. He looks incredible, but it's the last year of his deal in Tennessee. Will he get a long-term deal there? Change of scenery oftentimes means that the player's usage could change. So I'm not banking on Derrick Henry anywhere near past the next year or two, depending on where he goes, if he stays in Tennessee or not. But I'll put him here right after Ramondre Stevenson, and also put another veteran running back right by Derrick Henry, and that is Dalvin Cook. 27 years old, when healthy, is an elite running back. My only worries for him is really the health. So many shoulder injuries in the past, and I think this year's draft could really disrupt some running back rooms. There are so many good running backs, and also there's a ton of good free agent running backs that I think someone like Dalvin, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings draft a running back in like the 2nd, 3rd round this year and kind of start to lighten his load towards the end of his career. It's just, I think there will be a lot of disruptive draft picks this year, and Dalvin could be impacted by one of those. Next name I'll put here is Dameon Pierce. My thoughts on Dameon Pierce have been well documented. I think if you can get a 1st-round pick for him, I would take it in a heartbeat. The reason he's here right now is because of the workload that he's getting. I believe Dameon Pierce is a very replaceable running back, and the draft capital would also suggest that he is very replaceable. There are so many players that we can point to who have been drafted in his position, have played really, really well, and then have been replaced either the next year or soon after that. Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi, Phillip Lindsay, Myles Gaskin. Most recently, remember when James Robinson as a rookie was a top 12 fantasy running back because of opportunity? What'd they go do? They went and drafted Travis Etienne in the 1st round and replaced him. How about Elijah Mitchell? Played really well first year, was an absolute breakout. Waiver wire pickup of the year. What'd they do? They went and trade for CMC. It's just, I find it hard to believe with how many good running backs are going to be changing teams this year and entering the draft that Dameon Pierce is going to be purely the only work in this backfield. I think he's going to split opportunities, and I think he's a replaceable running back. All right, the next player, and this might be controversial, but I'll put Rachaad White next. I believe he has taken over that role. I believe he is a starting running back, and a starting running back for Tom Brady can be very, very valuable. He could be a league winner this year. Young player, only 23 years old. If he takes over this role and this running back room remains intact, we could be talking about him as a top 15 running back at this time next year in redraft leagues. The next player is really difficult to rank because from an efficiency point of view, he's one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL. Every touch he's given, he's been dominating. In the past 2 weeks, he's been given workhorse opportunity. That is Tony Pollard. What do the Cowboys do, though? The only reason he's not higher is because what the hell do the Cowboys do? They already have Zeke on contract, And his contract is huge. They're spending the most money on the running back position right now in the NFL of any team. So you already have Zeke on contract, and Tony Pollard's going to be a free agent. Are you going to re-sign Tony Pollard as well? I don't understand what the Cowboys are going to do, so I can't rank him any higher than this. Next, we got Alvin Kamara. We all know who Alvin Kamara is, but he is 27 years old. He is getting up there in age, and you will be without him for 6 games next year because he did break the league's code of conduct, and he will be suspended. We just don't know how long that will be. And the last player I have in this tier, which is probably higher than most people. Again, I want to bet on talents and youth with my running back room long term. And this is still a young player who has proven his worth, I believe, this year. And that is Antonio Gibson. That's right. I am still ranking Antonio Gibson over Brian Robinson in Dynasty. And for me, it really comes down to how I viewed these players as prospects. When Antonio Gibson came in, I truly thought he could be an elite, game-changing, franchise-changing running back. He has shown spurts of that. But when I scouted Brian Robinson, there was no area of his game that really stood out to me. He is a good running back in a lot of areas. He's a decent runner. He's a decent pass catcher. He's a decent pass blocker. His speed is very average. His burst is very average. If you are asking him to go north and south, he'll do the job for you. But if you ever need him to go laterally, it's over. It's a nightmare. So to me, I still think Gibson is the most talented running back there. Doesn't mean they want to use him that way, the same way the Lions are deciding to use Jamal Williams. But I'm still going to bet on Gibson long-term in Dynasty football. That is the end of this list. Now I'll go to the D tier. And at the beginning of the D tier is a player that I truly think could end up in the B tier this time next year if their recovery goes well. And that is J.K. Dobbins. I still am betting on the talent of J.K. Dobbins long-term. Okay. He came back really one game and had a great game versus Buffalo in week 4, where he had 22 fantasy points. He had, I believe, 17 total touches, if I'm not mistaken, and 2 touchdowns. He looked very good against a very good Buffalo defense. J.K. Dobbins is clearly the most talented running back in this backfield. It's a mess with Kenyon Drake and Gus, and it's just been a rough year for the running back room in Baltimore. But another year removed from the injury, I'm hoping that he'll be able to find his footing again and remind everyone the talent that he is. Now, then we've got Miles Sanders, who was a huge buy for me all offseason, 25 years old. If I knew he was getting a long-term deal in Philly, I would move him up probably into this C tier. I would probably move him up right around here is probably where I would put him if I knew he was getting a long-term deal in Philly, anywhere from here to here. But I don't know that, and there's no indication that he will sign a long-term deal. Everyone and their mother has the Eagles drafting Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs or an impact running back in mock drafts. So it's hard to say if Miles Sanders is going to be re-signed. So could he go into free agency and then split the work with someone else? Yes, but that would obviously hurt his impact in fantasy football. Next player, an aging player who I think, gets a little bit disrespected, but again, hard to rank him any higher with the unknowns of Aaron Rodgers' career, what that offense will look like without Aaron Rodgers, and even now, it doesn't look like a very good offense. Aaron Jones has, for his entire career, been boom bust, and we're continually seeing that here now, even with more of a focal point of the offense, if you will. Next, we got 2 Bear running backs in David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert has absolutely solidified himself as a split back in the NFL. He can absolutely be a reliever, a guy who can get 10 to 12 opportunities a game. If you want to split, the running back rotation, will David Montgomery re-sign? I don't know. I don't think it makes much sense for this team to re-sign him. And then Khalil Herbert could actually have more opportunity. And then you could also put Montgomery in a different scenario where he could thrive as well. And then we have probably the biggest disappointment of the running back room this year, and that is A.J. Dillon. A lot of people, including myself, thought his role would grow this year. I think that was their intention, but their offense has just been so poor that I don't think that they have felt comfortable continually using him and giving him a bigger role. Only 24 years old. I like the talent. bruiser guy, gets better with the more carries that you give him. But with Aaron Jones having a long-term contract there and the unknowns around Aaron Rodgers, I just don't see how I can rank him any higher than this. But I know there's a big fan base out there for A.J. Dillon. Let's talk about Devin Singletary. A little bit undervalued, I would say, in the Dynasty sphere. And the only way he would go lower this time next year in my rankings is if they draft a Bijan, or if they draft a Jameer, or they draft a Zach Evans, or Sean Tucker, pick your flavor there. But as of right now, Devin Singletary is breaking out. He broke out actually at the end of 2021 during the fantasy playoffs. He was one of the most valuable running backs in the fantasy playoffs. And now they're clearly making him the workhorse guy. Since week 4, he's averaging over 70% of the snaps. He's getting the opportunity in a high-powered offense, and he looks good. So I'll put Devin there. Only 25 years old. Obviously a little bit up there in age, but I think he's got plenty of life left. And how about Isaiah Pacheco, one of the most polarizing running backs in all of Dynasty right now. Young, I think he was drafted in the 7th round. Young, athletic running back, great burst, great speed, runs with determination. But the two problems I have with Pacheco is, one, the identity of the Chiefs offense. They don't build their offense around the running back. They just don't. They're not prioritized. And even when Pacheco has been the starter, the past 2 weeks he's been the starter, right? 56% of snaps, 40% of snaps in back-to-back games. Jet McKinnon is still involved. Clyde is now injured, but if Clyde moves on and if Jet moves on, they'll bring in other guys to kind of replace those roles. I just don't see him being heavily involved. And it's also not common for the Chiefs to really involve their running backs through the air volume-wise. Like, there'll be games where they get like 3 to 5 targets, but outside of Jet McKinnon this year, no one's really getting targets, and definitely not Pacheco. He has 3 targets on the entire year. And the other thing that worries me with Pacheco is the draft capital. Drafted in the 7th round, we're talking about all these running backs who were drafted in the 4th and 5th round and how it's going to be tough for them to get second contracts. The same can be said with Pacheco. I just don't see a scenario in which he's going to be given a long-term deal. And then the last player that I would have in this tier would be Elijah Mitchell, whose usage is confusing because his first game back, he was given 20 touches. Second game back, only 9. Really strange, really confusing, but a really good, efficient runner. Every time he touches the ball, it feels like he's going for a first down and 10 yards. If CMC is ever to go down or have a long-term injury, Elijah Mitchell would instantly step in and be a top 15 to 20 running back every single week. Still a young player, so I'll bet on him with the contract that he has left. Then we're going on to the F tier here. We got some vets. James Conner. If I had to bet on any of the vets that were to be replaced this year, I think James Conner, it's very, very likely that the Cardinals either bring someone in through free agency or draft a running back in, let's say, the 2nd or 3rd round. It's a huge need for this team to be a better team on the ground, more efficient. Then I'll put Brian Robinson there. Yeah, I don't like the player, but he's been given opportunities and he's a rookie, so he's got a while on his contract. So I'll put him there. Then I'll also put Michael Carter. Someone who is still involved in the offense, a younger player, good pass catcher. And then James Cook. Again, I wasn't high on James Cook. I was out on James Cook this year, but as a talent, you still have to bet on his potential maybe being reached in Buffalo if they don't draft any more running backs. Then I've got Damian Harris, who I think can either re-sign or, find opportunities elsewhere in free agency. He's always been an efficient runner, always has run really, really well. And I think we could potentially see him revive his career, kind of similar to what James Conner did. James Conner wasn't a high draft pick. He, got opportunities because of Le'Veon Bell's holdout. And then after that, signed with a second team to be their workhorse. Maybe Damian could do the same thing. Next player is a polarizing player in Dynasty right now. That's Jeff Wilson, who has become the workhorse for the Dolphins. But again, just like James Conner, I feel super confident in saying that this running back room is going to look completely different. So it's hard to really value him any higher in Dynasty. It feels like kind of like a 1-year workhorse deal rest of the season. Then I've got Lenny Fournette in here, older running back who has already lost his job. Hard to really put him higher than that. Same thing with Zeke, older running back who's done a lot for fantasy but lost his job. Same for Kareem Hunt, except he never really had the job to begin with. And then to end the list, I've got Jamal Williams. Have to keep in mind that yes, Jamal Williams has been great this year. He's the running back 13 in PPR formats, but he is still 27 years old. He doesn't have a contract after this year, and we have no idea where he's going to be. So it's hard to rank him any higher than that. So this is my top 40 running backs as of right now. This list is fluid. It will continue to change, but I'm hoping to let you guys see where my mind is right now as the trade deadline kind of approaches in Dynasty football. Let me know if I should do more positions. Let me know if you disagree on something. That's fine. The more knowledge in the chat, the better in the comments below. So huge love, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.